Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Please let's wait for others before we officially start the session. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Taiwo Balawaimi, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. This is a two-day webinar series by PSN-YPG Lagos, and we're so glad to have some of the finest in the industry coming to It's great to have some of the finest in the industry coming to speak with us yesterday. I hope you can hear me, please. If you can't, kindly indicate. If you can hear me, please indicate in the chat section. Okay, if you can hear me, please indicate in the chat section, please. Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right. So this is indeed a two-day webinar series by PSN-YPG Lagos, and we're so glad to have with us some of the finest in the industry. Yesterday we had a career session, this career aspect of the webinar series, and we had Pharm Ogun of Pharma, who spoke to us about how to crack the career development code. And she spoke a great deal about how mindsets, brand, as well as a good SWOT analysis helps us in building a dynamic career. I believe that all those who participated in yesterday's session had a beautiful, beautiful time and truly insightful. Many thanks to Pharm Guru for such a delightful session. We will also like to thank resources professional, having so many experiences in diverse companies, multinational companies, and she was able to tell us what it takes in the workplace. Today, we will be having the business aspect of the Career and Business series, and we have none other than Pharm Suleman Sule of Shelf Life. Pharm Suleman Sule is a pharma business leader who has a decade of experience in management roles and client-facing roles across hospital, community pharmacy, and even the pharmaceutical industry. He has previously served as a medical representative with Novartis, winning an award to that effect. So that shows the excellence with which he does his job. And we are so privileged to have him speak with us today about pharmacy practice and how to build innovation in pharma business. And know that this is going to be very important for those of us who are in the community space, as well as those who have an interest in launching a business, whether in the pharma industry or beyond the pharma industry. Thank you very much, Pharm Suleman Sule, for gracing us with your presence. I'd like to appreciate at this time. Kindly inform others so they can join us as soon as possible. I'd like to recognize our state coordinator, Pharm Emmanuel Obayomi, and I'd like to ask that he gives brief opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Taiwo. I hope I'm loud and clear. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar series. Today is day 2. I want to appreciate everyone that attended yesterday's webinar series. I also want to appreciate our facilitator for today. He was present all through yesterday, but left before I could thank him. So thank you for joining us also yesterday. So today I'm actually looking forward to today's presentation, and I'm sure we all here too are also looking forward to it. So I would advise that we all take out distractions wherever we are, jot down 1 or 2 things we can jot down, and then ask your questions too, because I'm sure many of us have questions that are bothering us about pharma business, innovations, and the rest. So thank you very much, Taiwo. So I think I'll hand it over to you now.
Hi, can you guys see my screen? Please confirm and if you can hear me. Good evening. I'd like to thank the PSN-YPG, Emmanuel, Taiwo, and the rest of the team for putting this together. I attended part of the session myself yesterday, and I could say I did get to pick one or two things which, if I had known in the past, I believe would have definitely helped. So it feels like a privilege that we are getting people, great resources. Bao and Cynthia, I guess, who came after her, were superb in delivering, and I hope I'm able to build up and add some value in that same light. I think I'd like to quickly just refer back to something I heard Bawu speak yesterday about, which was attitude, talking about the mindset and all. I've always had a framework within which I looked at myself in any organization or anybody in my team. It's typically what's this person's attitude, the mindset to work, what's the skills, and what's the knowledge either about themselves, the industry, or the market in general. So I'll be focusing on that latter two because I feel the guys from yesterday had done a great deal talking about the rest. So if I have your permission to begin, I think we can start. So just a show of hands if you guys feel we can start, and I'm happy to continue. Okay, let's see. Awesome. So basically, in the next, this is an outline of how we would be proceeding with the session. I think in speaking about the objectives, what I understood that some of us were looking to get from this would be getting to know in person some what are sort of frameworks myself and maybe other professionals use. What was the sort of mistakes we made? I saw a question about someone saying, how would you draw up a business plan for 5 or 10 years? And I think what sort of resources could you point us to for self-paced learning or whatever it is? So I guess we would be covering some of that in this presentation. Subsequently, I would like to round up with an interactive session where basically you could ask me anything, whether it's from the things we've discussed so far or whatever concerns you have that's related to the webinar series. So that would be the running order. Some housekeeping first. So my network might be choppy at some bits. So feel free, I haven't disappeared, I'll still be there. I'll still be here to continue. If you have any questions or you'd like to draw my attention to any part of the presentation, or you'd like me to speak more about certain aspects, I'm really happy to do that. If you have questions, drop them in. Please use the chat box as well, and promise to get to them before we round up today. So basically, my name is Suleman. Feel free to connect with me, LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of these places on the handles shared. Talking about what I have been up to, I'd like to talk about my career, say maybe from university. I did my pharmacy school in Zaria, and after pharmacy school, typically, I eventually, after some work, went up to pursue a master's degree. I ended up doing something in public health, but in selecting where I wanted to go to study, I was really interested in health economics and policy. So I tried to look for an institution that housed the Centers for Reviews and Dissemination, and also the Center for Health Economics that does most of the research for the UK's NHS. And in that time, I got exposed to a bit of project management as well, which was something I had also dabbled a bit into during my NYSC. In terms of jobs that I've done, I had worked with Brews. I think during the break from uni, when everybody would typically want to go to do a locum somewhere, um, I was really curious about manufacturing, and I heard there was this company who was doing some local manufacturing as well as marketing. And at the time, they were the scientific office for AstraZeneca in Nigeria. So I did a 3 month stint there with the production manager. So I was able to get exposed to a lot of what happened on the back end of their operations there. Um, then, of course, I went on for internship. I interned in the clinic in Abuja, and I think I quickly made up my mind at that point that yeah, it wasn't really what I think I would want to do going forward. So luckily, NYSC came around, and I think I would say that was the most influential part of my career so far. Because while everyone would typically just regret, oh man, I'm going to this government Ministry of Health, Primary Healthcare Development Agency, yeah, probably wouldn't be a lot to do there. I was actually very lucky that the Ogun State government at the time were working on this community-based health insurance scheme, and they were in the advocacy and pilot phase for across 7 of the key local governments there. So I worked quite closely with the consultant and the commissioner of health at the time, and that really spurred my wanting to go on to do the project management bits, as well as interest in health finance and health economics and the other specialties around that. While I was doing that, I was always very interested in community pharmacy as well, knowing the role the community pharmacy plays in delivering health, at least to the community where they are typically situated. So in the evenings, I would locum at a very popular pharmacy in Abeokuta then, a Precious Pharmacy, and also do some consultancy for folks who were either looking to start up businesses and they just needed the processes in place and the rest. And that's made me go into community and say, okay, I want to work in a place that has a proper structure to learn from. And yeah, that was MedPlus. Subsequently, I found myself having a lot of ideas, but I was pretty very shy. So I had the ideas, but I just couldn't, I wouldn't talk about myself or my ideas or anything. So I got an opportunity with Novartis at the time and joined their specialty care franchise. That gave me the opportunity to basically sell products that were pretty expensive at the time, and meant that I was also interacting with some of the best, say, consultants in maybe endocrine, nephrology, retinal specialists, and the rest. And I think that builds my confidence to the point where I said, okay, fine, I was happy to. I think I did that for about 3 years plus, and I said, okay, I was fine. I needed to do something outside of that, and I met these fantastic guys who were running a health supply chain health tech startup, who had done some really great work with some really great companies, the MPHCDA, the Gates Foundation, and McKinsey. And yeah, so that's where I currently am. I've been there for like about 3.5 years now, and I basically lead operations for Shelf Life, which is an inventory management, subscription-based inventory management service for community pharmacies. So that's about me by way of introduction. So speaking about attitude, which was something that was a central theme of yesterday's conversation, one thing I'd like everyone to always have at the back of their minds is, if you've made it through pharmacy school, I believe everyone on this call basically has the core makeup of what you need to succeed. At different points, you've had to show resilience, you had to show share intelligence, the brilliance, being able to synthesize like large volumes of information, which maybe sometimes didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, if you can if anybody basically at some point crammed this, was able to write it out, has an idea of what naphthalene synthesis is and its metabolism, then I feel that person can basically figure out almost everything. And I think that's the lens within which I would like us to look at our careers, or look at whatever businesses we either form or we are a part of as employees. I think there was a line from yesterday's conversation, which I wish I could contribute to, which was, I think someone said something about, oh, chase passion, not profits. And I take a slightly different view to that. I would say follow what you do that's likely to have an impact, but please also have an eye out for the compensation, whether it's financial, whether it's esteem, your mental health, your mind, that awareness that you are contributing something to society. I think it's really important that we also have that at the back of our minds while we are trying to impact society. So we'll be talking about just knowing what the ceilings are, what are the trends in general that's going on in the pharmacy landscape. And I would be drifting sometimes between, say, talking about it from a global context to what's obtainable in Africa and what's happening in Nigeria from the community pharmacy angle, and the models I would show would also be fit for either for individual use or for a business. So let's have that at the back of our minds. I'd follow this up with a quick, it's a 1-minute video. I think I first saw this in December of 2020. There's been a slight change to it, but the idea of showing this video is just to give us an insight into what the global trends are in terms of company, in terms of size, in terms of where innovation is happening and where value is being delivered. I would want us to have in mind what the industries are and their positions, and to see where pharmacy comes in, and it will be important for us to reflect on that. So I would just proceed to show this video. It's going to take just 1 minute of our time. If there's any issues with it, please draw my attention to it, so I'm sure we can. All right, did you guys catch that, and can you hear me? Could someone just indicate so I can continue?
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome. So, all right. So, looking at that video, I think the only thing that had changed had been that with Q1 nearing an end, we've seen Saudi Aramco being replaced. We've seen Bitcoin somewhere in that top 10. I think the interesting thing to note would be that the top 10 of that list, it's basically tech companies, financial institutions, companies in consumer goods, e-commerce, and then a pharma company gets in there at number 11, which is Johnson & Johnson. The reason why I decided to show this video was first saying pharmacies have like exposures to different parts where you could fit in anywhere. Our industry in itself is not doing shabby, but if we had looked at the time series of these companies, we could have seen how these sectors which I mentioned basically came from somewhere further down in the rankings up there. This gives an indication of the way the global markets and how technology innovation and basically how entrepreneurs are thinking of things at the moment. So now let's talk about Africa first, and let's talk about pharmacy itself. So where there seems to be positive, so it wouldn't just be about identifying what the problems are. What I would want us to leave out of this slide basically would be that Africa's 1.2 billion people depend, 60 to 70% of them depend on pharmacists and drug shops as their first source of care. So if the WHO has a target of around 5 pharmacies per 10,000 population for every country, Nigeria as at the end of 2019 is currently at 1.26 pharmacies per 10,000. That's way below the 5 per 10,000 targets which the WHO set. And you also have countries like Egypt, who are currently at, I think, 6.6. And now let's note that the numbers we've reported for Nigeria here still does take into account the last 10 years where we've basically had newer schools being accredited. Otherwise, before then, it was around 0.86. So it's not all doom and gloom in that regard, because still we have about, I think I read the paper somewhere, about 42% of registered pharmacists in Nigeria practicing reported being in the community space. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of share market size and the current incumbents, knowing that that market is growing at around 10% year on year, then you begin to think that, okay, that's a really, really yet still growing aspect of the economy that we could still participate in. So whether it's within any of the traditional forms in which pharmacy is being practiced, or whether it's going to be evolving services that are now being built around the operations, pharmacy operations. So now, so where does this fit, and how much credence does this have generally that we have something valuable to offer? So if we look at global frameworks like the Sustainable Development Goal, I think 3 and 8 of them makes it apparent that for us as professionals and young career people, there's scope for us to ensure healthy lives, promote well-being, and even more importantly, promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth. So whatever we do that's been productive, that's been valuable, clearly does add to the economic growth of the country, of the region, and to me that sounds like impact while definitely getting compensated. But we know that in order to achieve these goals, we definitely need more pharmacists succeeding. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in retail pharmacy itself, but there are areas that need our attention at the moment. So whether it's increasing access to drugs and services, and again, I'll keep emphasizing services and not just the products itself. Healthcare financing is one big area. Patient-centered care, irrespective of site in which it's been delivered. We wouldn't say because it's a community retail pharmacy that it's basically pure trade.
Hello, sir. We can't hear you. Hello, everyone. Kindly exercise some patience. I'm sure Pharm Suleman will join us very soon.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. So at what point? So I'm happy to resume from where you guys stopped hearing me at.
Okay, you were mentioning healthcare financing as well. Yeah, you're mentioning healthcare financing and saying that healthcare business isn't just related to community pharmacy alone.
Awesome. Thanks. So basically, I was just sharing with us that there are other aspects within the health system as a whole that requires pharmacies showing leadership and filling in the gaps. So the next section I was going to talk about would be around pharmacy practice and now business model innovation. So I got one of the expectations from this group was if I needed to write a business plan, what do I need to think of or how do I go about that? So I think luckily there's a great resource that has been a framework I have used personally for businesses, and sometimes I get to use it to do like a skill or a career audit, like where am I right now? What do I need to do next to achieve my goals? And what is it going to cost me? What's like the expected returns? The business model canvas, which is the tool I would be introducing, was introduced by two academics, Osterwalder and Pignor. So the tool is basically this framework of 9 distinct blocks, and each of these blocks basically represents several aspects of the business. So for someone who wants to either has an existing business or you're looking for areas where you could adjust to be more profitable or more sustainable, or you want to just have like you're responding to competition or you're trying to get ahead, implement strategies that puts you ahead of competition, then you can get to tweak any of these elements of the business model. And so I tried to also classify the 9 blocks into like what the key activities are for each of them. So to the right of the canvas, basically, where I say whether your service or your product would be desirable. These are the value creating elements of whatever business it is. Of course, we always start from the middle with value propositions. And to the left, I would say these are infrastructures that every business needs to deliver the value proposition. These are items which you would use to identify whether your business in itself will be feasible, what sort of resources, partners do you need, and your infrastructure would typically make up what your cost of your business is. So if you look at the base of the canvas, it talks about what your revenue streams will be. And the idea always is that on the right side where you're creating value and capturing value, you are always having more of that than the cost inputs in the infrastructure that's needed to run the business. So I'd like to give 2 examples or 2 cases. The first one would be, say, a typical pharmacy business. I think yesterday we had about 19 or 20% of the people who responded to Bawo's poll saying they were interested in some form of retail or hospital pharmacy. Interestingly, another 6 said they were interested in some form of small business, and another 13 said, I think, health tech. So if you put all of those together, about 40% of us from yesterday were really interested in some form of this, while another 46% said they wanted to proceed to go for a master's. Now, why I'm talking about the guys who want to go for a master's as well is you could use this as a skill audit or some form of compass to identify what are the resources you need to arrive at the goal you want. And perhaps, hopefully, the 16% who also reported not being sure, hopefully they're able to get some direction at the end of this. So now, starting from the centerpiece of it, which is the value proposition. So if you are to come up with a business plan, say for a retail pharmacy, this is the point where you begin to say, what are the products and the services that you would offer that meets the needs of the customers? And in filling out this point is where you begin to say, okay, now, so what becomes my unique selling point? What's my differentiator? So if I have a community pharmacy, or I'm interested in going to a community pharmacy business, for example, what I would be saying is, okay, I want to be able to dispense medicines. I want to be able to counsel. I want to maybe operate a minor ailment service for products where you, of course, have regulatory backing to provide guidance for OTCs and the rest. Now, if you would want to say, okay, you want to get a differentiating factor, for example, random. Do I want to run vaccination services? That doesn't happen a lot in our clients. Do I want to have pharmaceutical care like feature significantly in my practice? I mean, I've seen pharmacies where they report in Nigeria, Kano to be specific. I've seen a pharmacy that was getting close to a third of their revenue coming in from fees. They almost had like people within their community on a retainer. They would pay some money to consult with the pharmacist. Bear in mind, yeah, these are areas where healthcare access is not particularly that smooth, but it gives you the picture of the sort of critical role that pharmacies can play in this sort of setting, and how we can create value that obviously can be monetized. So now, this basically is a differentiator of this particular pharmacy from its peer or its competitors. So having listed out your value propositions for whatever business it is, you're now able to go to the right and now identify what type of relationships do you want to create with your customer segments. How would you interact with them? So for pharmacies, typically, our business relationships are usually business to customer. Some pharmacies might still be able to operate business to business in terms of how they exchange goods or something. That there's still some aspects to that still happening. In terms of channel is what would be the different means by which your value proposition would be delivered to your customers. So now, I think the typical channel that exists in our space would be the brick and mortar pharmacy. But as we begin to become more inventive, or whether it's in pursuit of more revenue streams, you're looking to expand your markets, then you can have new channels that are enabled by technology coming into play. That's where the idea of online pharmacies are. So your channel is not just now restricted to people who are within, say, a geographical radius of where your pharmacy is located. You can get like a wider pool of clients coming into your pharmacy to get access your services. Now, most pharmacies could either exist by solely owning the channel, or the channel could be in partnership. So maybe I could own a brick and mortar pharmacy, but I have someone who has like an online platform where products are listed, and I could also list some of my OTCs there or whatever it is, or I have someone who has like a telepharmacy platform, and I could get listed there as a service provider where I can get people who want this sort of service coming in and having access to my expertise. So you see how we could basically tweak one element of this business model canvas, and you're beginning to iterate on what pharmacy practice as it is like. Again, further to the right is now looking at your customer segment. You basically identify at this point what category of customers you would like to try to serve. So this is where demographic factors will come into place, and these are also clearly inputs into into maybe how you would stock your pharmacy, how you would run your pharmacy. So if, for example, I was operating in a residential area, so, and that means I have a lot of women of, say, reproductive health between 25 to 49. I know that in addition to like female-centric goods or products, I would also be thinking about the fact that they may have kids as well. So pediatric preparations, or my skills in addressing ailments that are localized to this group would come in. Or perhaps if I operate in an area where the socioeconomic profile it's a bit upscale, that would influence the sort of products that I would stock. Or it would also influence my strategy somehow, because remember I said everything to the right of the canvas does have an effect on how you capture value. So if I'm in a high socioeconomic profile area, I might focus more on innovator brands. I might get higher markups or margins on these products, but it might also mean that my volume or my turnover is slower. I could also be in an area that's, I'd say, low to middle income. And as a result of that, I know there are going to be pricing pressures on my business. So I would rather offer the generic substitutes or alternative brands for these innovator products that would be at the price point where my customer segment is. And as a result of that, my focus on my strategy will be more on throughput. So how quickly do I sell through this rather than the margins? So that's that about the bit about creating value and capturing value to an extent. So I'd move on to the left part of this, which talks about what's the infrastructure you need. So for example, you at the key activities point, you need to have like a mental map of what are the most important activities required to implement my business's value proposition. So I talked about a minor ailment service, I talked about pediatrics, I talked about all of that. So now, doesn't mean I'd need to get some more specialized training to fit this demographic here. What sort of products do I need to stock? What sort of supply relationships do I need? Now, listing resources, then I need to think about what are the key resources I need. So now, sorry, let me just take a step back to key activities. Now, this is where the supply chain or the value chain in whatever industry you play in would come into effect. So for me to operate a pharmacy, I need the products, so I need inventory. If I need inventory, I would need suppliers for these products. If I need suppliers for these products, it means I would be engaged in a lot of procurement and plan inventory management related activities. Do I have the scope to improve my knowledge on that? Because that would be a key part of what I would be doing. To manage my cost, my revenues, I would need a bit of financial management skills. Am I well equipped for this? In terms of key resources, so this could be whether either human, physical, intellectual, the staff I need, the regulators who would play in my space, subject matter experts in regards to running or managing a business, all of these kind of things. Then key partners, these are people that would either help you optimize your operations, reduce your risks. So for example, I would say compliance risk. At this point, the PCN becomes a key partner. There are loads of really innovative companies that are coming up now and offering services that are for the community pharmacy ecosystem. So now, would you want some pharmacy taking care of your inventory? Maybe because you're not really optimized to do that when you look at the resources and the activities, and you just don't have that. We've talked about pricing. Does that mean that maybe I would need really expensive products from the start, and because I am just starting off, I do not have enough capital to afford me the full spectrum of products I would need. So would I need to partner with some of these people who might either give me capital in some form? What's the cost of capital? What are the alternatives to consider? All of this would add up to your cost structure. What's the cost of the rent if you're having like a brick and mortar pharmacy? Is it very advisable at this time to expend so much money on the fixtures and the fittings to sort of give it all the bling you want. Yeah, I mean, there's a basic standard to operate. This is where you begin to look at what's going on externally in the environment, where you would say, in fact, it also affects stuff like location, for example. So we saw with the lockdowns where pharmacies that were based in, I would say the ring around the cities, the peri-urban areas, were the ones that were able to thrive through the lockdowns, not the ones that were in the highbrow commercial areas of town, which actually did have were paying more in rent to operate their business. And these were the guys that were the most hit in. So these are some kind of things you would want to consider. At some point, residential areas were not really attractive prospects when you're thinking of where to site your location, because you think everybody goes to work, they most likely procure their medicines or fill their prescriptions on their way from work. So when they get home, they really don't do anything. They don't get to do much. But you could imagine now with the advent of people, a lot of people working from home, we've seen the demand patterns shift to these residential areas, not necessarily go away even after the lockdowns were lifted. So this is something you need to think of. And an analogy I always would give would be, so pharmacy demand never really goes away. It's almost like a balloon. So if you squeeze in one end, you'd see all of the pressure pop up somewhere. So it's always about following the trends, what the market indicators are to know how to help your business. So I hope somehow we're pretty much clear about the business model canvas, and we can use it as a framework to think about our business. You could use it to think about your operations. You could use it to think about your career, for example. So what do I want to do? I've always known I wanted to build products, build services, lead teams, because I think I could organize, I have some organizational skills to do that. Some subject matter expertise. So thinking of that as a value proposition, which you have for yourself, what do you want to do? Of course, I clearly ruled out earlier, I'm not wanting to work in the clinic. So you have an idea what sort of now customer relationship you could exchange that with. What sort of networking would you want to do? Channels, where would you want to meet this type of people? Would it be conferences? Would it be putting your place in spaces where you get more visibility, sort of like our colleagues from yesterday were talking about? Key activities, what resources do you need? What extra training do you need to do? How much is it going to cost me? What's the typical income I would be getting from this role compared to my base knowledge skill right now? Is it worth it in doing it? So that's basically how you could apply this. So hopefully, if we don't get anything out of this session, it would be really cool if we can always rely on this. And I put the website up there, Canvanizer. So you could basically go on there and you can fill the template for whatever thing you have in mind, and it spits out like a PDF plan. So that could almost be like your business plan. You could also go up to Strategizers. I think this is the company owned by the guys who designed this tool, this template. So you could always like get a guide on how to use it to your purpose. Yeah, so I just felt, let me talk about something that's not pharmacy related. So we just have an idea again of what this looks like. So for a company like Netflix, I basically just found this online and I put it up here so we could see what their value proposition was. They wanted to have like a really huge content library, no ads, sort of like YouTube. It's on demand. You watch what you what you want to watch when you want to watch it. Simple pricing, subscription-based, flat fee, has high-speed connection. You could get like a freemium model at first, then eventually you get, that's the trial period, then you move on to the paid one where you get like the full offering they have. Then you see the customer relationships, the customer touch points. So self-service, typically you serve yourself using the interface, the app as an interface. If you have issues with your account, there's a support, there's social media where they get to push content to you, update you on what's new, as well as the app. You control everything. Then they have like a recommendations engine. That recommendations engine, it's basically what tailors what it offers to your viewing preference or whatever profile you had set up. And it's a way for them to continue to upsell by making recommendations for you that makes the service much more valuable. It shows off things you like and the rest. So yeah, channels, desktop, mobile, whatever it is, social media, the host film festivals and the rest. So customer segments. So yeah, and their key partners are the content owners. You see them doing a lot in Nigeria right now. Internet service providers to optimize the infrastructure to make their service run seamless. The hosting sites for their servers and everything. Cinemas, theaters, regulators, investors. So I hope we've been able to see how you could use this. It's not sector specific, and what makes you truly innovative would be, as I've said, looking at one or two elements of the model canvas and twisting in a way that it reduces your costs. So if you want to use Uber, for example, you could imagine that key resources for them would have been owning like a fleet of vehicles. But if they now partner with third-party people who own vehicles, they give them their website, and as a result of it, they're able to drive traffic to them, get them rides, and they split. There's a split on the fare, which is their own revenue, which is their revenue model. So you see how they've been able to keep their cost structure really low and just continue to provide support for the drivers on the platform. So yeah, now it's interesting. So how did we get here? Talking about companies like Amazon, online pharmacy, disruption happening in healthcare, knowing so well that pharmacy is a huge gateway to community health generally. And I saw this tweet sometime last year from this professor at I think School of Pharmacy in North Carolina. And he was at a conference where he was being asked at the time whether Amazon is a threat or opportunity. I'm very inclined to sharing his point of view, where perhaps what we need to do is get on with the advancements and see how we could adjust our practice to suit the time. Pharmacy, I believe, do have like a very unique proposition, which not a lot of industries or a lot of professions do have. And that's the fact that no matter how much a repository of knowledge Google is, it still wouldn't replace that human interaction, that relationship aspect of the service we provide. And that's not something you could easily automate. And that's why even when you find some careers disappearing or some sectors disappearing, it's quite a number of tasks would get automated clearly, but nothing really beats. I mean, we are wired to crave these interactions. We could see how someone like me or a couple of that would say, we are hermits, we'd rather just stay at home. But when you had the lockdowns, everybody really craved that interaction. So I can imagine that at a point when you're ill, you would rather talk to someone than some AI bot. So how did we get here? Let's take about just pharmacies from being a profession that operated at the heart of the community to people now thinking, how do I list my products online? Almost like the e-commerce vibe to pharmacy itself. Yeah, whether it's e-pharmacy, online pharmacy, telemedicine, whatever we call it clearly, there is a turning of the tide that we need to begin to embrace. So whatever business you're starting, now whether it's the pharmacy, whether it's a non-pharmacy business, you need to have at the back of your mind what is changing in the landscape that's going to influence how my business is going to operate and perhaps survive in the future. So yeah, there are a couple of forces driving this change, and it's typically sometimes you either go with the tide or it's see you later. Your business will just crumble. So I'd give an example of Nigeria, for example, where we could see the growth in mobile services, internet penetration from 2015 compared to what the projections are for 2025. So it tells you how ubiquitous it is now, with the micro of that. of the huge infrastructures that meant business. I mean, in the past, you'd go to like certain companies and they had like this huge, my internet is unstable. Can you guys hear me? I think I got disconnected for a bit. All right, I think it's back. Yeah. So basically, there are technological foundations that are driving this change we see in how businesses operate, and that's something we need to think of. Again, the scope of this shouldn't be frightening in any way, saying, "Oh, technology, I need to do all of this." There's a lot of software as a service coming up now, where you basically pay for a software that would digitize a large part of your business, and you just pay like a subscription fee. Or so the investment right now is not as huge compared to what it used to be able to digitize businesses, and this has given rise to like different marketing channels, omni channels, a lot of offline businesses going online. New business models are emerging as well. So when we talk about telemedicine, telepharmacy, online pharmacy, these are some of the changes we are seeing that are being enabled by technology. So in terms of talking about pharmacy business or whatever business you're managing, I think the best way I could really coin it would be, there are 4 areas that you need to always think about. So it's the delivery, how am I executing the core aspects of my business, what planning and control mechanisms are in place, how do I improve or develop on these operations, how do I make sure quality remains intact, how do I manage my risks, and this is where you need to sit and form the strategy, think about how you manage the day-to-day of it, controlling performance, and what are the process technology, the different repeated tasks that serve as inputs that delivers the outputs for your business. How do I automate them? How do I do them? So that's where you see technology coming into play again. So these are the different reasons why technology seems to offer like a big business, it's ubiquitous, it's almost everywhere. The reach is global. The standards for, say, designing a software application or a website, it's basically the same everywhere. I mean, you can get companies like Shopify, or our big icons of these days now, our Unicorn, Flutterwave, and the rest, now opening up storefronts where whatever small business you have, whatever you're selling, maybe it's teacups or whatever it is, you can list their payments, integrations, and everything, and you can really just operate it from the comforts of your home. It's very interactive. Unlike other traditional models of business where there's a bit of an information asymmetry, now there's information is almost been democratized. It's basically everywhere. As a business owner using e-platforms or whatever or digitize processes for their business, you could see a lot of customization or personalization to fit your target demography or to fit the inherent nature of your business. Then it's social. There's a lot of marketing now has moved from there's something Google calls the 0 moment of truth, where in the past you needed to interact with the product physically, or you depend on the brochures or read up something online and everything before you make a purchase decision. But these days, you get to make a decision on what particular brand you want, or what brand speaks to your persona even before you walk into a store. A simple search, sometimes you've done like 20 or 30% of your buying decision, or some targeted ads that comes up to you while you're just on the internet. So all of these different aspects changes the way we think of our businesses. But there are some caveats to this clearly, especially for highly regulated businesses like pharmacy, where we are in, and maybe other sectors that you might like to go into. One thing you need to always have at the back of your mind is that innovation is typically a step ahead of the regulators every time. So there's bound to be that friction sometimes. But then that's where the business environment, government policies, the people in place would support. So if you're doing something that's really new, you need to just have this at the back of your mind. constantly build trusts and always have an eye out for the vulnerabilities in the supply chain. So are there any questions at this point? I'd like to just pause and then we go to the last bit before it's questions and answer. I'm happy to just address anything at this point. So it's not just monotonous.
All
And if you
right,
guys,
thank you very much, Pharm Suleman Sule. Do we have any question for now? Or would we like to share our thoughts on what Pharm Suleman has shared so far? Okay, great. So we've got Pharm Akonde Aziz, okay? Kindly unmute yourself or share your thoughts in the comment section. Pharm Akonde, you may go ahead to unmute yourself so you can speak.
Okay, thank you, Pharm Suleman for the beats. They are actually enlightening. My question is, in this era of pharmaceutical care, how will online pharmacy or e-pharmacy be able to, how can we merge it with pharmaceutical care such that drugs will not be abused, or the wrong drug will not fall into the wrong hand, or the right drug will not fall into the wrong hand, in a way that drugs will be controlled too, because all these are part of the work of a pharmacist. When you are dishing out drugs, you ensure that the drugs are for the right person and the person is taking them the right way he's supposed to take them, and knows how to actually interact with those drugs in every way in order to avoid negative health outcomes through the drug. So how can we input this? Can this be possible through e-pharmacy? And what are the bottlenecks? And how can they be surmounted? Thank you.
that's a great question, and I'd like to offer what I think about it. So I think the online pharmacy or e-pharmacy model or idea as it is for being integrated into community pharmacy is very nascent at this moment in our climes, and that's because a few infrastructure is missing, which could be built up from scratch, or which I know some people are in the process of building up. So for example, the first bit would be patient medical records. The assumption would be that you have a prescription source coming from a hospital that comes up to your pharmacy, then or your online pharmacy portal or whatever it is, then you do the process of checking and everything happens online, and then you dispense whether you are dispatching to the person or not. So the first part of that chain is broken. The public hospitals, the private hospitals are not connected with the community pharmacies. Now, the second bit is, do we even maintain the basic patient? Now, you operate a community pharmacy, a brick and mortar community pharmacy as it is. Do we even have like customer records for our patients? Some places I see it happening. I see some service providers giving us some technology to help with that, mostly for marketing purposes. But I think that's something that could also be repurposed for this use. Now, in terms of another thing that's lacking again would be, how do we ensure the systems, the security of the system? I mean, if you don't have a way of getting patient information or identifying them and knowing the source of the prescriptions, then the security of that prescription is highly in doubt. But I think the way I'd like to frame it is, while this may sound like problems or obstacles why it can't work, the silver lining there is these all sound like really fascinating problems that someone can pick an aspect of it and solve using technology or using whatever local networks or partnerships. And I'll just give an example of where something feels broken and someone thinks about it and does something and it works. I've always had like a big headache about around the start of the year where I have to go to ACP and pay local, pay national, go to PSN, pay this, pay that. But you saw what happened this year with the portal where you just go check, I'm eligible to pay this. I pay all in one source, connects me to a payment gateway. I pay all my fees. I pay a small token for having access to that convenience, getting everything at once. I could print something out, which I basically use to clear myself. So you see how we're able to digitize a process that's like really cumbersome into one very seamless, smooth process. And at the end of the day, you can clearly monetize it. So that's the frame, that's the mindset. I would like us to approach the multitude of problems that exist in our system. So we just talked about e-pharmacy. We talked about different areas where appears to be the blockers, but these are unique problems that we could find a way around, and they could exist as a business of their own. So thanks, Akonde. I hope I've been able to address your question. Then I'd proceed to the concluding parts of the presentation.
Hello, Akonde. Has your question been satisfactorily answered?
Yes. Well answered. Well answered.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I came across this nice report from PwC, which I felt I should share with you guys. So it gives an idea of the changes happening and how we could tune our careers or our skills, whatever skills we are acquiring to fit what's going on. So the first bit that was really interesting to me was the market trends. We've touched upon this earlier a bit, where patients are becoming better informed. If Yimika is on this call, I don't think she is, but I saw her and a couple of her friends the last time wearing a t-shirt that was saying, your Google search does not replace my pharmacy or something. Yeah, but I mean, the gist there is even the patients are becoming more informed, and they are able to, the information asymmetry is not as it used to be anymore. And now this was from a global perspective, so there are some peculiarities to Africa or our market here, which I'll be pointing out. Patients are picking up a bigger share of the bill. So like in other places where payers or health insurance or health management organizations were doing a lot, there's a lot of co-pay happening now. In our market, I mean, it had always been out of pocket anyway. NHIS accounts for just 2% because it's for people who are in work and all. Yeah, so there's demand for personalized medicines. Patients want cures, not treatments. They want cure for issues, not just treatment. So, and the emerging markets are becoming more important. The countries in Africa with the huge population, the huge population that are also young. So that gives a lot of lifetime value for whatever interventions are being targeted at this group. And that's why Africa remains a right market. Whether the market is able to afford the services that are targeted at them becomes a different question. But what the key takeaway from this is pharma will go beyond the medicine. The pharma and the healthcare value chain would become, lines would be as blurred as ever. And this means pharmacists would need wider multidisciplinary skill base. You can't just say, oh, I know my pharmchem, my cognosy, and my ecology, and that's it, I'm going to be set. Nope. Increasingly now, people will be paid for outcomes and not products. And it really got me thinking when I talked about the pharmacy in Kano that I visited last month, that was making a thought of their revenue from the fees people paid them for pharmaceutical services. They even had people on retainers that had deposits, families had deposits that they would come. That's like, in terms of the finances, that's like a really stable business where you already have some guaranteed income ahead. Meanwhile, we see what happens in typical community pharmacy settings where you can't even predict demand sometimes, whether it's based on seasonality or just general epidemiological trends. You just can't, you don't know what you would sell. You have an average, but you're not sure. Outcome data will drive healthcare policy. The second bit was healthcare trends. So as we are getting a hold of infectious diseases, we're living longer and our lifestyles and diets are changing. Aging now becomes an issue. So the chronic diseases, the non-infectious ones, which are more costlier to manage over the lifetime, becomes what's happening. People would pay you for performance, definitely. Financial constraints on payers, like I mentioned, the health insurance companies need to be more profitable. They would sometimes determine or decide the formulary, what products, what brands. So pharmacies now need to have flexible pricing strategies that would like offer real value for whatever money they're getting. You can't just, I like this word, medicine plus package. You can't just open a store and hope to just trade in pharmaceuticals. There has to be some value addition that's the medicine plus package that you're offering to that community or to whoever is paying you. You have to create value for that. Then in terms of, now I had to talk about this part for people who are very interested in the drug design research. R&D is becoming more virtual. We saw the speed at which scientists from across the world could sort of collaborate to record. I just was, yeah, I was just talking about how people are interested in research academia can see how R&D being more distributed. You could see the speed to which you come up with like a vaccine. You could also see that even if the supply chain generally had like based in China and India, and we could see how a world event like the pandemic had companies Hello, is everything okay? Can I continue? Wait for a second there. All right, I'll just go ahead and let's see this. So let's cast our minds back to the initial, now I've talked about the market trends to able to sort of like look within and almost personalize, see the people we would want to recreate our careers in. One of the mentors you can look up to. So you learn from them, or you see someone's career paths, which, yeah, no doubt there's a lot of element of luck. But again, it's all luck is basically being prepared and meeting opportunities and taking it. So I just like to point a few people that you might want to look at. So from that slide, the video, we saw how Johnson was one of the top pharma companies in the world. The CEO, I mean, it's came up on LinkedIn, Wikipedia, came from a sales marketing background, some operations, and is the CEO of the company. I really like the story of Jennifer Tauber. She's like the VP for Pharma worldwide. And she has a degree in pharmacology, but again, a lot of our work had been done in sales and managing operations. So it gives you an insight into what the localize it. So if you look at the health tech innovators in our space today, who are they? What do they do? These are young people who we could possibly look at and see one or two things we could learn about them. I mean, what they are today, and I'm sure that would be sufficient inspiration. like say, skills that can propel you in your career are not necessarily stuff you learned in pharmacy school. We need to be open about that. There's been a lot of conversation, I mean, for the longest time now about the curriculum, incorporating management into it. That's just management. We're not even talking about technology that's like going at a very alarming rate. So what I think is you need to always be able to think around the problems in your society, find ways to problem solve. In fact, I think innovation or whatever it's called, basically at the core of it is just problem solving. Pick a problem, solution to it, monetize it. Collaborate. You may not always be able to do everything on your own because maybe you don't have some resources or some key activities are beyond your scope. You could always collaborate. Great. Something to manage. You need to
My apologies, everyone. I see that we have a network challenge. I believe Pharm Suleman will join us very soon.
Yeah, so that's something that's what realizing. And I put up a list of alternate career paths here. And yeah, so to the final parts of my presentation, someone asked, so where do you learn? And for me, there's Udemy, Coursera, and the rest. I use those for like very specific things I want to learn about, go in deep. But on the surface, I think have had two really big teachers, which I'm almost ashamed to talk about sometimes, but I learned a whole lot on YouTube and Twitter. Twitter, for example, for me, if you're able to curate the people you follow to your interest, it's I think there are bucket loads of information there that you would learn. YouTube, I mean, it's a valuable resource. You could download them on your phone, watch at your spare time, and read books. A few books I would suggest right now, maybe I struggled with coming up with this, but Business Model Generation, the book for the Business Model Canvas explains it in great detail. Harvard Business Review have like this compendium on innovative business models and things that makes it work. I really love this book by Efosa Ojomo with late Harvard professor about market creating innovation. So remember how we talked about the online pharmacy thing where I said, you innovate, you solve a problem, that problem becomes a wheel that drives economic growth because you'd employ people who would work in that space and all of that. So Innovator's Prescription as well basically talks about, again, this is a very American context, but you could read it up to see what's happening in the healthcare space there and how people are thinking about it. And personally, I love the story about Angela Duckworth's book about grit. So if you're ever towing a path that's quite uncharted, you need to be resilient. You might suffer some knockbacks, but it's always how you get back up and continue on it. Then for anybody who knows me personally, I'm a rabid Nike fan. And it's not just that they make great running shoes, but someone was able to turn his passion into a multi-billion-dollar empire, and you get to really hear the stories, and it's a true startup tale of almost going broke, the first meetings in Japan, getting a supply source, the marketing, building a team, growing as individuals with your team, suffering setbacks and breakthrough. So these are like fantastic reads I would recommend. And if you all will oblige me, it's been a nice session. We could have like maybe put on your cameras for like 2 minutes, please, if you can, and I would do a quick screenshot and we'll be on our way. I'm sure I would want Emmanuel and Taiwo to help me bully people into that. I think they're respecting me a lot. Oh, right, looks like it's on.
All right, guys, please let's turn on our video so that we can have a picture. Will you do that from your end?
Yeah, you could do it from your end. I don't think you could do it from your end and share with me. It was also my way of trying to see if people were still on the call anyway. So if you could do that, once it's done, just let me know and we'll just move on. Are we done?
Not yet. I'm able to do so.
Sorry, let me see if I can figure it out. Give me a second. Or whoever can do it is fine. All right, this is why. Can you just give me a second? I figured it out. Great. Awesome. See the second page. All right, fantastic. Thanks, guys. I could share my screen again to just wrap up, and we move to the questions bits. And yeah, right. Thank you very much, guys.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Pharm Suleman, for such a delightful session. You gave us a mini MBA here, and it's so great to learn from you and to learn what the business aspects of pharmacy, of healthcare really entails. Thank you for sharing sincere truth, telling us that it's not going to be easy, and of course, helping us to see the importance of collaboration. I believe that the one pharmacist on this call will put in mind and into practice all that you have shared with us. Thank you also for sharing your contacts. I believe that many of us would like to connect with you after this call. If you have, kindly raise your hand or type your question in the comment section. Nonetheless, we have a question already. I'd like to recognize from Cynthia Sonyaolu. She facilitated a session yesterday, the session on strategic position in the workplace, and it's so great to have her join us here. Thank you, Pharm Cynthia. And she has a question.
It's great to be here.
She'd like to
great. Yeah, you could read it. Oh, yeah, she asked a question about connecting on LinkedIn. Yes, sure, please. It would be my pleasure to. My handle is on the screen right now, if it's still showing. That would be it.
All right. Pharm Cynthia, would you go ahead to ask your question, or should I go ahead to ask it?
Go ahead. My network isn't so fantastic, so in my break. So please ask on my behalf. Thank you. Hello?
Hi.
I hear you, ma'am. Cynthia would like to know if you see an opportunity for community pharmacies in terms of partnerships with HMOs, health management organizations. Which opportunities for intersections or partnerships do you see between community pharmacies and HMOs?
Oh, that's a great question. It's one that has been there are a few pioneers that are already making steps towards it. And I think the biggest opportunity I see right now would be, so for hospitals, there's always the pressure of their resources, tying down your capital on stocking these products. There's also the pressure of the HMOs, because they have the cost, the imperative to want to control costs, to almost guide what product is listed on the formulary, different pricing pressures and the rest. So what happens is when you get a script to a hospital, for example, and the products are not there, what happens? The patient has to go nearby into the community to procure these products. Now, this tends to have an effect on the customer service for the clients who are on those HMOs. So what we've heard people approach us recently now to say would be stuff like, can you make sure pharmacy ABC working with a company like, say, Shelf Life, can you have this product stocked at this pharmacy so my patient on this plan or that's whatever can always go to this pharmacy to access these products. So that now becomes a connection between the community and the health maintenance organizations to help the community pharmacies boost footfall and business. And I feel with the learnings or success from stuff like that over time, we've seen how the healthcare sector in Nigeria tends to take a cue a lot of the time from private organizations. So perhaps that might be an entry into community pharmacies playing a role in schemes as large as the National Health Insurance Service, for example. So I think that's my opinion on HMOs and community pharmacy, the synergies that could form.
All right, thank you very much, Pharm Sule. Cynthia, I hope your question has been answered satisfactorily to an extent. Thank you very much.
All right, okay.
Okay, great, Pharm Cynthia. Do we have any other questions? Pharm Morera, I think you indicated your interest in asking a question. Pharm Morera, are you ready with your question? Okay, if other people have questions, kindly type in the comment section or raise your hand. Pharm Suleman, I know that many persons will be wondering what you do at Shelf Life. So I would like you to talk to us about what you do at Shelf Life and how you empower community pharmacies and community pharmacists.
Right. So Shelf Life basically is, so we know the challenges community pharmacies have. I'd say there are 5 key things. The first one will be access to capital to either expand their businesses or just have inventory on their shelves. Second bit is the inventory management in itself is a bit of a problem. You might have systems where you're not buying products in the right quantities, or so as a result, you might be running the risk of expiries, pilferage. Products have short shelf lives. They expire on you. You can't predict demand. You don't know what to stock, when and where. There's a lot involved in the procurement and logistics of products. You're managing so many suppliers. You're juggling credit around. So what we do is, as an alternate to financing, we provide pharmacies with inventory on consignment. So they only pay for what they sell. We also come around and we do the management of the inventory for you. So at intervals, weekly, 2 weeks, whatever it is, we come around, we count your stock. So we count what was from what you had the previous week to what you have the next week. The balance becomes what your invoice is for that period. We also use that data to determine what quantity you need for the next cycle. And so delivery is almost automated because you've subscribed to a list of products from us, and we know what those products are. We have some visibility into the demand patterns for that product. And yeah, so basically it becomes an alternate to financing. It helps with making pharmacies avoid out of stock and expiries. So yeah, that's basically what we do. In terms of my role there, I basically do everything from strategy sessions to operations to working with the team to working with the products and the tech team as well, user requirements, feedback. So I'd say mini product management, although we have product management on the team as well. So that's shelf life. That's what I do there as well.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the questions we got from the participants during the registration was creating a business plan. I know that you already spoke about creating a business model canvas, a business model canvas, yes. But I would still like you to shed more light on how we can better project the future of our businesses. Yes, how can we better project the future of our businesses?
So I could say for community pharmacies, for example, consult me. Anyway, random. There's available data that could be used to help your financial modeling. So for example, anybody who has operated a community pharmacy here will tell you that you experience your peak sales somewhere from July, August up until November, and then it begins to drop right up until February, March, April, before you begin to see an uptick again. Now, what's responsible for that sort of pattern? Seasonality is one. We've been able to see, for example, that with rainy seasons coming and going, you get malaria with its associated febrile symptoms, a spike in the use of antibiotics, top two categories anyway. And you would see that reflect in the businesses' revenues. So sometimes now for a pharmacy who is just starting, you have that sort of insight. It helps you determine when to start. Another resource that I think could be helpful, if you go onto the Shelf Life website, it's called www.shelflife.co. There's a value calculator on the home screen where you can put in a few parameters like what's your projected income, revenues, a few details about your business, and it generates like a financial statement sheet for you. So we also tend to use that to sort of do goal planning with our clients. I think it's a free resource that I'm also able to walk anybody through if we can set up something. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, man.
Another question we have here is being able to balance or manage the professional, the clinical side of pharmacy and the business aspect of pharmacy. So say someone has tried to tick all the boxes, especially with regards to the business side, saying that we're usually trained clinically, and someone tries to manage their books well, do well with people development, the procurement, logistics of their businesses. They try to tick all of those boxes, but the business doesn't seem to be doing well. What suggestions would you give to such pharmacist who is struggling with their business, who is struggling with their community pharmacy? How can they thrive?
That's a very multifaceted question, but my approach to that would be looking at what aspect of the business isn't doing well, looking at what trends or patterns I see. Usually, again, I'd still refer to that business model canvas to say, okay, what are the key activities that I ought to be doing? Which ones are suffering and why are they not happening? Or what are the key resources I need? Is it that I don't have capital? Is it that I don't have the right people? Well, for example, we know that the presence of a pharmacist at a community pharmacy would affect sales performance for whatever outlet it is. Do I not have a pharmacy? Am I unable to pay a pharmacy for full coverage the whole day? How am I pricing? Am I pricing too high? Am I struggling with competition? So people are going elsewhere. What I would say a big solution is that tends to not, it's new in our space now, is outsource. Outsource so you can focus on your core competence, and you have organizations or people, you can call in people, short consultancy, you could call in companies to partner with you to handle those other parts of the business for you. A typical example I always tend to give of that would be, we see companies like Coca-Cola is distribution. Let's talk about ShopRite, for example. ShopRite has the brick and mortar, the pharmacy, for example, but they don't own or take the risk on the inventory. Someone else does. And when they sell, they either do a profit split, and sometimes you get extra focus because you have the merchandisers from that company, the sales optimizer always in there. And so, I mean, these are some sort of like strategies we've seen working on other industries that we can begin to adapt into community retail practice. So yeah, always get help, and it's always a great idea to focus on your core competence and learn the rest or outsource it.
Great, thank you very much, sir. If we have any other question, it would be great to type in the chat box or raise our hands before I ask the final question on ground. So final question, given your experiences across board, clinical pharmacy, community pharmacy, the industry, and you've done very well for yourself, how would you say we can actually rebrand pharmacy practice in Nigeria?
Well, I think it's both ways. Rebranding community pharmacy as it is has to be bottom up and top down at the same time. What I mean by that is, I mean, it's really impressive to see that we are having a forum like this to learn from each other and hopefully get to transfer some of these into our practice, whether not ours, or get to know about resources that might help us in starting out ours. I mean, being able to self-organize for something like this, I feel, is a big rebrand in itself. I mean, in the past, you would attend typical pharmacy meetings and it's pretty disgusting, to be honest. The second bit is leadership would be encouraging our young and bright minds to go up and have a say in the people that in places where conversations that affect our profession and the practice is being made. And of course, there's also no substitute for knowledge. Like that quest to continuously improve yourself. I mean, you can't give what you don't have. So there's the top down, bottom up, and the personal bit of just continuous improvements. And I feel the rebrand is there. I mean, we have trailblazers. You have the Med Pluses, the Health Pluses, you have Pressures, you have the Nets. You have like some people who are showing that there's some minimum standard that can be achieved. And I mean, it's mostly up from there. It's tough, but we can do it.
Great. Indeed, it is tough, but we can do it. Thank you very much. So we'll take the final question now. Pharm Araya, please ask your.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Chief.
Okay, thanks, Pharm Suleman for. Okay, so my first question is, how do you advise a startup pharmacy, a startup online pharmacy? How would you advise for a startup pharmacy to build an online market? Are there people also to recommend that could be reached to basically to build an online market for a startup pharmacy? Pharmacy that wants to sell the pharmacy.
I'm not sure if Araya, could you type your question in the comment section? I think that will be better.
Yeah.
You can't hear me clearly. You can't hear me clearly.
Okay, now you know we can always hear you when you say if you ask when we can hear you. That's how it works. But we can hear you now. Hopefully it stays.
Okay, so my question is, how do you advise a startup pharmacy in building an online market. It's online market. And what are the people you could advise or you could recommend that would be used to build an online business? And also, I would like that I don't know how we could get to that business model canvas you talked about. I wasn't present when you talked about it, but I would like that's if a screenshot or something is sent to us. Yeah, so
Great.
that's the two things I want to ask about.
Awesome. There are two things I'd say. So if it regards starting up as a startup pharmacy wanting to have like an online channel, that sounds to me like an existing business trying to have like an additional channel through which they could reach more customers. Two things could happen. You could look for, there are a number of developers, I know a few, there are a number of developers that work in the healthcare space that have an idea of what sort of technology stack to use for that would work for an online platform. So you could either partner with these people or you could pay them, you sit down, have a meeting, talk about what your requirements and specifications would be, and they would build and deliver to you. So either you pay someone to do it or you partner with someone. If you're trying to take up the cost of that, you could maybe trade some ownership of the business for them having that, or there are different ways it could be structured, or always get professional help anyway, where you could go into an arrangement where you say, again, it could be based on performance. So you can build and maintain this online part of the business, and based on the value that comes through it, of course, your brick and mortar location would take care of fulfillment. So there's a way of tracking, and then you guys could do a revenue split, or it could be ownership, or whatever it is. But yeah, certainly there are ways you can expand your channel in that way. Then with regards to the slides, I would put it up and share a link so you guys could pull it from. I have a section on my website called Next Gen, where we typically just throw up resources like this, connect with mentors, whatever aspect of pharmacy you're interested in. So I'll put the slide up, I'll share a link as soon as it's up, and you guys could pick it from there.
Well said, sir. Thank you very much, Pharm Suleman Sule. Thank you very much for staying tuned till the very end of the session. I believe that we gained so many insights. It would be great to have us share all the light bulb moments that we got through the comment section. Please share in the comment section what jumped at you, what resonated with you, what points do you think you'll be taking away to implement in your career going forward. And while we do that, I will ask Pharm Suleman Sule to give his final words as we close.
I think a lot has really been said. What I would just like to add quickly is never let the perception of how huge a task is deter you from starting. Always just start and keep going at it. I'll give an example from anybody who has operated a startup is, if you look at your business day to day, you feel like nothing is happening. But when you look at what you've achieved, maybe in 6 months, in 1 year, you see that definitely there's been some progress in either direction. So the idea is always start and just keep moving. It's better than doing nothing.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. It has really been a privilege to learn from you. Guys, you've learned from 3 of the finest pharmacists in the industry. We've learned so far from Cynthia Niolu, HR professional, from Bawo Oguro, who is country head quality RX at Pharma. And today we have learned from Suleman Sule, who is the Director of Pharmacy Services at Shelf Life, and they are doing beautifully helping community pharmacies and community pharmacists to thrive in Nigeria. So if you are a community pharmacist and you're having challenges with any aspect of your business, do well to reach out to Pharm Suleman Sule or Shelf Life so that we can get your business thriving, and hopefully you can be the future MedPlus and all of the bigger names that we will be having in the community pharmacy space in future. Thank you very much, everybody, for making our time for today's session. Yes, I see the former IPSF president here, Pharm Sylvester Adeyemi. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Yesterday, we had the PSN-YPG National Chairman, Yimika Ogun. She isn't here currently, but it's great to have many of our people here with us. Thank you once again, everybody. I wish us success in our careers, in the dynamic careers that we are all aiming to build. Thank you very much, everybody. Do have a wonderful evening.